to go from January 12th, let's say, of 2024 to January 12th of 2025, and to compare
Yeah.
where Louisville fans and the program and the perception nationally, everything you could possibly think of, to compare where they are, it's pretty close to as polar opposite as you could get. Joined by a special guest tonight, Alan Thomas, one of the biggest Louisville fans you're going to find out there. He so graciously stepped in to help us tonight. Alan, what's good, buddy?
Presley, thanks for letting me step in. Obviously, it's always fun getting on here. Haven't been able to do it this season yet, but it's a good one to be asked to be on because this is a fun one to talk about. And there's a lot of topics floating around, in this winning streak that you brought up that you can say with your chest this year. So
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think that Louisville coming off a 82-78 win over Pittsburgh,
mhm.
and I think the prevailing thought here is that, man, I just there's too many directions to go, right? Like it's just but the prevailing thought is this team can just continue to win in a lot of different ways, right? Like that was kind of the sentiment after last game, and I mean, I think that this was the gutsiest win that they've had. Like it's going to be the best resume win as well.
Yes.
So far at least, I felt like it was pretty gutsy. Uh, getting having the opponent get kind of a home whistle, in my opinion. Like I think that Pitt got to the line twice as much as Louisville was a huge
Yes.
factor there. The fact that, it seemed like a lot of Louisville players were in foul trouble. It seemed like at times shots weren't falling, players weren't catching passes in rhythm. It felt kind of just out of kilter, and it felt like one of those games where it was like, okay, well, UVL might win a close one. It feels like this one's going to sting for a while, but somehow they pulled it out. I don't know. I mean, what's the prevailing sentiment for you?
I think kind of what you touched on. Um, it was such a game that like I went into it like and this is just the past 2 years talking pregame. I was like, we've got five in a row, 5 out of 6 ain't bad. Keep it close, make it respectable. And again, that was like my pain talking, and like trying to calm me down because it's a Saturday night, like hey man, keep your head up kind of thing pregame. And so as the game went on, you just again like the stat that rings out to me, not just after this win, but after all six together is the outlier being EKU second half. Louisville has won 8 straight halves of basketball. Like
Yeah,
and
that's a great stat.
one of the jokes last year was Kenny Payne wanting to beat this guy and that, or, mainly Calipari, but all his friends and stuff like that by a point, and just wants to barely, and like just to like eight straight halves that's a confident basketball team, and I think finally. Like we're starting to see Louisville get its identity. Like this team has an identity now, and I think it's grit, and I think it's obviously confidence, but mainly grit and poise with this basketball team. To where every time down the floor, you can look and like all of us are stat nerds. We're looking at our phones and we're like, they're only shooting 30% from three, and mind you, we're shooting over 40% the last few games anyway, like, overall. But like the threes they're not really falling. It felt like they were, but they really weren't like on paper. But this team that like when they have the ball, there's a, like my anxiety during these games and stretches has starting to be replaced with a little bit of confidence, a little bit of swagger, where I'm like, oh yeah, just dump it over here. I just give it to him. Like I trust everybody on the floor to do certain things. Even when Frank was out there and he grabbed a couple boards and made it, he had a presence for a couple minutes to where I just trust these guys. And it's the weirdest condition that we're in coming off of a year like last year, or even the year before, the last 2 years, where not that you didn't trust the guys, but you just didn't trust the way things were being done.
Well, and I think a lot of it has to do with the timeliness of plays as well. I mean, Louisville was outscored by 13 from the free throw line. Pitt was 20 for 22. Louisville was 7 for 15.
Wow.
There was a long stretch of the game. I want to say like the first 25 minutes where it was literally just Chucky Hepburn that had hit free throws, if I remember correctly. So, like, I think James Scott was, he missed 4 in a row.
Yes.
Javon Hogley missed one. Like, it was strange. It was strange. But, you see a game where Pitt shoots 47.6% from beyond the arc.
Yeah. Oh my God.
It was a game where it just didn't feel like much of anything was going well for you. I think that the stat that obviously should stand out is the number of rebounds that Louisville grabbed. 17 offensive rebounds, 44 total.
Yeah.
Massive, massive. I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's the story of the game right there. The
Yeah.
fact that, I mean, you grabbed 17 offensive rebounds, so they're to 31 total. Like, it's
Yeah.
a lot of extra possessions.
I think I could be foggy on this one, but I think Clemson out rebounded Louisville, and I think like
Yeah.
on the offensive glass they beat us by like a few. If I remember, like I remember going through being like,
Mhm.
but to my point here, and what you were saying is like a lot of these stats, like if you handed somebody like here's the box score, it really doesn't make sense that this team will go on the road and beat this team. That's what 20 spots higher in the net or whatever. And
Sure,
um,
sure.
mind you, they got drugged by Duke. You know what I mean? Recently,
Mhm.
but you didn't see a hangover of that at all. It's just, I mean, you just have. And again, I think a lot of it also is experience. Sure, he went and got a bunch of kids that played on teams that were winners last year.
Right,
And that
right.
competed for things and in championships. And mind you, you have a core from Charleston. That's
Mhm.
nice, but so I can't put my finger on why, like, the paper lies when you look at this stuff in retrospect. But again, like, it just poised down the stretch, and I can't, like, I'm a broken record. Like, I just, like, whoever has the ball, there's nobody that I'm like no, no. And even in the Patino years, there were people that touch the ball, and I'm like no, 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 get rid of the ball,
Right.
get rid of the ball. I mean, in certain situations, and I don't do that with this team. Maybe early in the season, I did, but I just, you find yourself just scratching your head at some of these stats, man. Like, because again, like, it doesn't make any sense. We shouldn't win these games, but we are. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's been a step up in play, but I think you're seeing the benefit, if there is one, of playing teams like EKU and who was the other team that Louisville played really closely? UTEP.
Yeah, UTEP. My gosh.
You're seeing the benefits of, some perceived lesser teams push you to your limits. You pull those out in the end. And kind of the same thing here, right? Like, a lot better level of talent, but you're able to kind of push yourself through to the end. So, I mean, I think there's a lot to be said for that.
Also, just the experience of watching these games, especially in this winning streak. It's before I would be either sitting back on my couch, not watching the game through the holes in my fingers like
Right,
this.
like scared to watch. Yeah.
Even in this Pittsburgh ending, like, but I found myself, clapping at the TV. You know what I mean? Like, and like, these are when things go well towards the end. There's like primal screams coming from Louisville living rooms.
Yeah.
When
Oh yeah.
things go well, and it's like, this is a little bit off topic, but the staff that and the players, like, you watch the videos of the post game celebrations and stuff, and like, I'm not gonna say like they're the only team that loves each other and they're the tightest
Sure.
knit
Sure.
group, but like
Yeah.
they have evoked something in like all of us,
Sure.
to where like you're like, you personally like root for like them to do well in every facet of the game. Something goes wrong and you see them, trotting down the floor, instead of being like, oh, you dumbass, which I have said that to players through my TV. I have not done that in a while this season. I did maybe early in the season, but in this stretch, like, you're starting to like encourage them through the TV. It's just it's
Sure.
a really different vibe, and just around the program altogether.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't agree more with that sentiment. And it's one of those, you're right. Like, there have been teams and players and moments that kind of stick out among others because of their ability, because of the player or the teams or the entity's ability to kind of persevere through difficult times, right?
Yeah,
Like, I think the Damian Lee, Trey Lewis team stands out.
right.
Obviously, a team where they had to basically pull them from the tournament, and the way that they finished out that season was really impressive.
Hmm.
You think about some of the when Chris Mack was suspended and the Baja Bullies situation, like
Yeah.
there's certain teams that just it stands out because of how they play with the adversity that's associated with them, right? Like a Kevin Ware situation, right? Like the team, you know, rallies around that, has a big emotional win against Duke, and then just kind of just parlays that into the emotion that it takes to win a national championship. And I think that you're seeing some of that emotion associated with this team because of the beatings that we've taken
Yes.
as fans and supporters. And I know that sounds dramatic, but look, this is your escape from life, right? Like
Yes.
people spend their hard-earned money, they spend their time on what is, yeah, it's a hobby, but it also represents culture and passion and love in their lives, and it can be something that takes you away, even if just momentarily, from difficult parts of your life. This is why I go to work. This is why I take care of my family. This is why I do it, right? Is to
Yeah.
have moments like this
Right.
to experience my squad, right? And 3 to 4 years at least that was taken from Louisville fans, right?
Yeah.
Completely. Like there was no hope. There was no, like, it wasn't even like in the, I mean, at the end of Chris Mack's tenure, for instance, it wasn't even something like that where at least it was a respectable program. It was the absolute doldrums. It was the polar opposite of 2013 or
Right.
any other magical season that you can conjure up great memories from, right? It was everything that was the antithesis of that. To go from January 12th, let's say, of 2024 to January 12th of 2025, and to compare
Yeah.
where Louisville fans and the program and the perception nationally, everything you could possibly think of, to compare where they are, it couldn't it's pretty close to as polar opposite as you could get,
Yes.
right? I mean, like we were, giddy about a upset win at Miami, who wasn't even a tournament team last year, right? Like, you,
Yeah.
you think about the lowest lows that we've been to, and then you look at where Louisville stands now. No bad wins on their resume, with wins over potentially 7 to 10 tournament teams, depending on the way that things shake out, right? Like
Yeah.
depending on if like a UTEP or EKU or a couple of these other teams end up winning their conferences. But
Yeah.
to compare where you are now to where you were, I mean, it's night and day, and this is what we do it for. And
Yeah.
so to have that emotion associated and with and tied to it, even if they were to go out and play 500 ball the rest of the way against a cruddy schedule, I think that you can look back at this moment and realize, like, oh, this is for real. Like, we're back. We are making our grand re-entrance into college basketball relevancy, and we're doing it in one of the most fun ways imaginable, right? Which is just playing a really solid defense, really crisp offense, great out of timeout play, and just very timely, solid basketball. I mean, couldn't be more pleased with where things are right now.
Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head. I mean, that I couldn't have said it better. Especially, the part where you're talking about these are emotional. This is like an emotional reaction. Everybody I talk to, and it's almost like I know how to feel because I remember the good old days.
Hmm.
A lot of us do. Like maybe my kids don't remember. Like they know who Patino is and stuff like that. They know that we won a title, but they were babies.
Yeah.
And that's weird. That makes me feel old to say that, but they were babies when the 2013 title. In Patino's heyday, and
Yeah.
so like all of this stuff, like when I'm talking about like these primal screams, like when good things happen, it was like and it's happened not just in this last game, but it happened when Case and Pryor dunked on Indiana. It happened
Hmm.
um, twice there at the end when Chucky hit the three and then Rain hit the three.
Yeah.
Like I am calling people on the other team out of their name, screaming in my house with a toddler like feet away, and
Yeah.
like I haven't like it's like off the hip emotions, just like these reactions, just watching a basketball game, and
Yeah.
like I'm watching, like my wife looks over and she just like laughs because she hasn't seen me act like that in some years.
Hmm.
Like on that level, like usually it's grunting and cussing under my breath, and like and how am I going to deal? Okay, well, and now I'm just conditioned to losing and stuff like that.
Right.
So yeah, so I mean it's like when all of it, like it's a culmination, like I know how to feel, like, or I know how to express how I'm feeling. But when I'm talking to Louisville fans about this winning streak, it's like I'm still conditioned to the way we felt the last 2 years. So it's like I don't want it to bubble over and be fool's gold.
Hmm.
But also, like, this is a very familiar feeling that I have not felt in a while. When big plays like that happen, of course, it's a big play that, big plays that really evoke it and really make it explode. And sometimes I'm just quiet. I do it on Twitter. Like, I explode all my emotions
Hmm.
on Twitter. But like, I'm not saying anything with my chest like I am now. I have not said
Hmm.
anything with my chest like I am now in years. And like, it feels great. I started a group text with my granddad, who's not doing great, but like he's fine. He's better than he was. Started a group text, and like, we haven't really chatted too much the past few years about Louisville basketball, because like I'm not even going down that road with you. We were
Hmm.
happy about Brom coming and things like that, just pointing at the good.
Sure.
And it is so nice, man, to be able to. It just all I said was like, to him and a few other people in the family that are like the diehards. All I said was, "How about them Cardinals!" Exclamation point. And like, to be able to like have him in a group chat to where we can talk about the this gift that he introduced me to as a kid, is like, back when, like, those were good days too. We were ranked in the 90s, like from here to there. You know what I mean? Like, plenty. Saw some good players, and then like, I've always known Louisville to be good, no matter what. Maybe a down year here and there, but you were never
Sure.
worried about it. And it feels good to, like, I am not worried about the future. I am not worried as long as I know Pat Kelsey is in the fold. That part feels so good. I'm just trying to, I'm trying to keep it contained, so that I don't, jinx anything. That's really where I'm at. I feel so damn good about it. I just don't want to jinx the future. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think a sentiment that Pat Kelsey is kind of shared with the public, and I'm sure that he, you know, instills upon his team is just to be where your feet are. And I think
Yeah.
that's such an important way to look at life. And it's an important way to look at this season, because I think you're seeing that kind of pay dividends, right? I think that this is a team, as the season started, that tended to get a little bit ahead of itself. It was still trying to figure out what its identity was. I mean, there was an identity, but they were really growing as a unit.
Mm-hmm.
And then they've kind of played through some adversity, but now you're seeing that as they're rounding more into what they will be at the end of the season, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
now that they are beginning to kind of take shape and mold into what their potential is, right?
Yes.
I think that they're really that's hitting home with them, and I think it couldn't stand out more than at the end of this game, right? So Louisville was up for the majority of the second half, and Pitt just kept pushing back, but couldn't really get over that edge until the 3-minute mark in the second half. So Zach Austin makes that ugly 3-pointer to go up 73-72. Louisville calls timeout. Out of that timeout, literally 1 second out of that timeout, Rain Smith makes a 3-pointer.
Right.
And then Pitt goes down, misses a layup. Rain Smith fouls on the offensive rebound. They make 2 free throws. The next trip down, Rain Smith hits an elbow two, which is very out of character, which
Yeah.
mean like it was just out of system, it was out of everything, but it was just very collected, like, and right, like that's just a be where your feet are type of situation where it's like, I have an open shot, I need to take and make this open shot.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just very, just everything about it was very, like, methodical, and like it was a decision that he had to make in that it's hard to explain, without actually seeing the play,
It's like
but
Carly
it's
Jones-ish. Like
yeah,
Carly.
it was just a decision that needed to be made, right?
Yeah.
And just to have the presence of mind and calmness to make that shot
Man.
speaks volumes. And then, so Pitt goes back down the floor, misses a shot. Louisville comes back down, runs the second play out of that ATO, right? Or I guess it would be the third play. The second trip down was a broken play, so it would have been a third possession out of that timeout. They run a perfect play that they've run many times to Rain. Definitely a heat check, and he
Yeah.
hits it to go up by 5. Then Pitt pushes back, comes straight back down the floor, makes a 3. um, Pitt and Louisville both called timeouts out of basically just to, they ran some clock and then called timeout essentially.
Yeah.
They ran a play to get Javon Hadley a 3. He misses it, gets his own rebound,
Yeah. Which was huge.
and then, yeah, and then Chucky makes a layup to seal the deal.
Yeah.
And so it was just everything that needed to happen outside of Pitt going down and hitting a three and outside of Javon missing the shot on the set play.
Right.
Literally everything could not have gone more perfectly for Louisville, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's all about just they just figured out a way to do it, right? Like there was not was it perfect? Absolutely not, right? Like it was a very just kind of gritty, ugly game. Lots of weird foul calls, lots of
Hmm.
inconsistent play, inconsistent calls from the refs.
Yeah.
Just yeah, it was just everything was kind of out of sorts, out of system. But when it mattered the most in the last 3 minutes, they were just where their feet are, and I think that's ultimately what sealed it, man.
Absolutely. And I love that you're saying, like they'll draw things up for guys, and it's like when that it was like a few games ago they started really running this dunker spot thing with James Scott, which has been like eye sex to watch because they are so creative with figuring out ways to hide him down there, and he's just like he all he's doing is waiting, like he's got a man. The way they attack the paint makes defenders come off James so he can circle around. It's in like that lob is just like it. You could go and make a montage of probably like 2 or 3 minutes now of just those, but it just goes to show like when the things are working like Rain Smith, they're like we're feeding this stud, and the team does a good job of not of just kind of buying into that, I think. You can pretty much tell like nobody's in the huddle with the mindset of, well, I've got eight or like I've got 8 points and 6 rebounds, so a 10 would look nice on paper. No,
Sure,
no,
sure.
I don't think anybody's thinking that. I think they're just like, this is Rain's game. This is the Rain game.
Yep.
To quote Mike Rutherford's meme. It's like it's almost like they instill the confidence to the point where like Rain knows he knows the play's his. There was a one of the late timeouts, and I remember I was talking to Pat Kelsey, through my TV, but they had it in the huddle. Is that it was that little where they had like they didn't show what he was drawing up, but he was drawing up something, and he's
Hmm.
talking to everybody, and like you see Rain is just engaged, and he's talking, hey, this. It's almost like I'm telling Pat Kelsey, I said, just give it to Rain. I was like, he looks engaged. Just give it to him. I'm
Hmm.
like, he's on fire. And I think that was the one they drew up for Hadley. But
Hmm.
the reason I point out that it's the one they drew up for Hadley out of the timeout is because Rain was still like, this is not my play, but I'm making sure everybody's locked in because we got to make
Right.
sure that he gets open. This
Right.
is so I see no egos, and it's just like it's refreshing. Not saying we had some in the past, but I see the power of the unit makes so much sense now. After watching
Yeah.
all this, come together the last few games, it's beautiful.
Yeah. It's it's this balancing act that you see Kelsey, and not only Kelsey, but the staff, the team, everybody is constantly working as a unit to try to figure out how to resolve issues as they come up, right? Like, and that's something that we didn't see the last few seasons where there wasn't a lot of end game adjustments. It was just kind of, for lack of better terms, just kind of throwing shit against the wall is what it felt like, right?
Uh huh.
And that's just there's always a plan. There's always a plan with this team, and like you said, no ego, right? Like you saw Terrence Edwards started off the season not kind of knowing what his fit was
Mm-hmm.
as the season's gone on. You saw that there was a stretch where he had 4 or 5 games where he scored 19, 20, 22, 23 points, back to back to back to back. And
Mm-hmm.
then all of a sudden there's a sharp drop off and he scores 5 points and 7 points, and really is kind of taking a step back on the offensive end. And yet he could not be a more valuable player because he's making so many plays on the defensive end. He's guarding their best player. He is using his length, his athleticism, and just general wherewithal to, you know, do whatever he can to help this team win. And I think that's so crucial. I think another thing that stands out about this team, the just will to win with this team. They shoot 40%, just over 40% on the year from beyond the arc in true road games. And
Wow.
Rain Smith is shooting 50% on the season in true road games
Oh,
from beyond the arc. He's 20 for 40.
it's an incredible stat.
Um, and he has 2 games where he shot over 50%, making more than 5 threes. Think about that for a second. So 7 for 12 at Pitt, and then he was what 6 for. I'd have to go back and pull it up. I think maybe 6 for 10 against Florida
Yeah,
State. Just so many things that you could just heap praise upon this team. Yeah, there's moments where you're like, I wish they could have put that away, but ultimately, you know, that's the ebbs and flows of basketball. That's the ebbs and flows of a season, right? And they just seem like they just have their wits about them. And no matter who's in the game or who's getting the ball, you can have confidence that the best play is going to be drawn up, the ball is going to be in the right person's hands, and execution 99 times out of 100 is going to be better than the other teams. And,
yeah.
that's something that you can take a lot of pride and joy in saying. So, I mean, I couldn't be more impressed with the way that this season has turned out,
Yeah.
given the circumstances.
And you're sitting at what did I see, 36 in the net ranking, and
Mhm.
I think McGavick tweeted the other day is like they're 34th or 35th in Ken Palm. Like all these little
Yeah,
metric things are starting to agree that not only are they a tournament team, but you're looking at a single digit seed, tournament team, and mind you, you don't have a whole lot of bulk to add to your resume, down the stretch. I mean, like it's a very but and you expect to lose a dumb one.
sure.
I do just because I'm a Louisville fan and that's just how my brain works.
Hmm.
But this is a very real possibility of closing the season with what you know winning like what I don't even know how many are left, like 16 of the last 17 or whatever, something crazy
Hmm.
like that. And mind you, that's I'm not taking anything for granted. I know we have to go on the
Sure.
road,
Sure.
but again, like, and I think you see Louisville ranked in this next one, or at least in the votes. I'm not sure if we've been in votes yet. So I think that's usually that's how it works. Like the team that wants to get in gets in the votes, and that fan base
Yeah.
gripes, and they say, "Hey, look what we've done," and then it's that's kind of the voters saying like, "Well, win another one," or
Sure.
win out this week, just beat these little teams here. You've got Syracuse, and I can't remember who the one after that is, but Syracuse is a road game, I believe.
Yeah. And then you
Um,
come back home to play Virginia.
okay, yeah, Virginia, which not saying I'm not worried, but I'm starting to poke out my chest a little bit
Yeah.
when I'm going down this because, and they've taught me to feel this way, through this winning streak. And not saying Syracuse won't be a challenge. I just think the way things are going, the way we play, and the way Syracuse allows teams to play it.
Hmm.
I'm feeling pretty good about 7 in a row. How about
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, I mean, so when you want to talk about winning streaks, so Louisville currently is tied for the 10th longest active win streak in the country. They would be seventh among Power Five teams as far as win streaks. Iowa
Okay.
State is number one in the country with 11 straight wins. Duke is 10th, or excuse me, second with 10. Michigan State, third with 9. And then there's a host of teams that have 8 straight wins. So, very real opportunity for Louisville to kind of maybe potentially take on that crown in the coming weeks. Diving into the statistics a little bit, as we talked about the 10th longest active win streak, but Louisville is up to 34th in Ken Palm. They are now expected to be favored in all but one game. That game being a week from Tuesday, so January 21st at SMU.
Hmm.
They are currently projected as a 2 point underdog. According to Ken Palm, he gives them a 44% chance of winning. Every other game, though, he projects that Louisville will be favored and projects them finishing 22-9. So only 4 more losses if the aggregate played out, right? So
Right.
that will continue to shrink if Louisville continues to gain momentum as far as expectations. But I mean, I think even a 9 loss team at this point is certainly on the inside of the NCAA tournament comfortably. And that's probably a team that is flirting with the double bye, at least a single bye for sure in the ACC tournament. So, yeah, that's exciting to think about. So Louisville, as we've talked about week to week, they are continuing to play slower and slower. So their average possession length is now 107th in the country. It was as high as second or third in the country to start the season off. So, and then we saw that offensive efficiency was continuing to climb while the defensive efficiency was falling. for a couple of weeks. Since Louisville's gotten into January, that defensive efficiency has climbed up about 25 spots. We're now 45th in the
Wow.
country defensively. So 42nd on offense, 45th defensively. The rule of thumb on Ken Palm, of course, has been in the existence of Ken Palm's website. There's only been one team that has not been in both the top 20 in offense and defensive efficiency that has gone on to win the national championship. So that's a pretty accurate metric that plays out, and Louisville is continuing to be one of the hottest teams on the rise. Other components, they still shoot more than all. They shoot more than all but five teams in the NCAA from beyond the arc. Um, but
Yeah.
they do make about an average amount of threes. So do with
Um,
that what you will. Rain Smith is third in the country in made threes.
hmm 61.
So
Yeah.
with 61 threes. So interesting stats looking into. Anything stand out to you as far as pace of play, stylistically, statistically?
And Rain Smith, number one in power conference, and I don't think I looked at that list earlier just out of curiosity. I don't think it's particularly close. I think, and when I say air quotations, like when I say close, like I mean the next person is like 5 threes behind him, maybe more in power conference play.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a guy that is going to hit threes. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
he's got some, and this he's done that against some really good comp so far. Louisville. I saw another thing where Louisville has the fifth toughest schedule through this date, through the current situation, college basketball, where the season is right now.
Right. If the season ended today, they'd finish with the fifth toughest schedule. Is what you're saying?
Yeah, and on a
Yeah.
6 game win, it's like there's so many things that like I almost did it just now. You do like the giggle, like where you're like, I can't believe that stat is real. I knew it was a tough schedule. I knew it was a tough schedule so far. I knew it was top heavy. We were told that all preseason, and we did drop some losses earlier. I think we're still finding ourselves, but
Yeah. Absolutely.
again, like you're rolling into. I'm not going to call anybody a cupcake. I want to keep my level head, talking about teams like Syracuse and the Carrier Dome and all the history there. And like, I do respect, opponents for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Pitt, let's see, was it cute? But Syracuse, here it is, second worst 3-point field goal percentage in the ACC. What is it? They allow eight plus threes per game. I think
Mm-hmm.
Louisville's going to eclipse that. Last in steals, last in allowed steals. There's a lot of things that go against how Louisville plays and how Louisville attacks you that Syracuse is just bad at. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is the one that strikes me the most. Syracuse allows the most field goals per game in the ACC. They also allow the most points per game. They're last in points allowed.
Mm.
And the thing about Louisville is they're 12-1 when they score 70 or more points. The outlier being the Kentucky game, which we can all say like that was a really well played game. We're all happy with that game. Weird as that is to say, Kentucky fans hated that, but I was actually very impressed, and I think that was the beginning of this little turn. I think we made the turn in the UK game.
Yeah.
Um, Louisville 0-4 when they scored less than 70. So like when Louisville in the one that was 70, the reason that the benchmark is 70 is that was Virginia. And they make you play slow, but it was one of those where there was the most points scored in Charlottesville in a few years or something like that. It was 70. So like
Mm-hmm.
Louisville's like checking all kinds of boxes. Again, like in doing things, and they can attack you and hurt you in ways that Syracuse isn't particularly good at. I would be shocked if the spread wasn't in at least the late single digits or early double digits. I'm not on any kind of gambling roll right now at all,
Mm-hmm.
but I would probably take, I would probably take 10 or more. Just looking at it on paper, unless Syracuse, we talked before the show, unless they pull out that Boeheim zone that might confuse us a little bit, which they might have to go with. I'm sure it's in his arsenal somewhere. But that's the only thing that this season, that the things that have been weird that slowed us down are like the zone from EKU, or like the that little matchup thing that UTEP did for a little bit. Just
Mm-hmm.
tricked us, confused us, whatever. PK likes to play free, and again, very creative at getting the ball in the paint, very, very creative at getting opportunities and just high percentage shots. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Again, I think Syracuse doesn't excel in those areas. Um,
Mhm.
I'm not going to tout it too much. I know six in a row is and claim and go ahead and pounding, hammering. Yeah, it's going to be 7 at Carrier Dome and all that. I think that's crazy talk. I'm not there yet, but if we go and take care of business and just smack them around, or even just get a hard fought win down up there, I'm gonna start puffing my chest out even more than I am now. I'm gonna start talking a little bit crazier than I am now. So I'm feeling pretty
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, Syracuse is not the easiest place to win. They've only lost 2 games at home so far this year, but they were to Georgetown, 75-71, and Wake Forest, 81-71. So something about scoring 71 points at home. But yeah, I'm just making sure here. Yeah, those are the only 2 home games that they've lost so far this season. But I mean, look, their wins at home are over Lemoyne, Colgate, Youngstown State, Cornell, Albany, Bucknell, Georgia Tech, and Boston College.
Right.
So
Yeah.
not exactly like a who's who of fantastic teams, right? So
Right. Yeah.
Ken Palm has Louisville as a 6-point favorite as of right now. He projects Louisville to win 79-73. Syracuse average possession length on offense is pretty much smack in the middle of where of the entire country. But defensively, they allow the 10th fastest possessions in college basketball. So interesting dynamic there for sure. I don't think that's good, Alan. I think that's really bad. They they allow
Yeah.
teams to get out and run against them a lot, which I think that Louisville would be more than happy to do. Whereas Syracuse on the offensive end, I think you see a lot run through their big man Eddie Lampkin. So
Hmm.
if you don't remember him, you probably will once you see him. He is 6'11", 265 plus. He is far far larger than anybody else on the Syracuse team or Louisville's team for
Right.
that matter. And he's a fantastic offensive rebounder, so that's going to be something that Louisville has to contend with. He's so as far as offensive rebounding percentage, he is 95th in the country individually. Jair Davis is also in the top 400 in offensive rebounding percentage, and then they have 3 guys in the top 400 and defensive rebounding percentage and Eddie Lampkin and Jair Davis. And then Donnie Freeman,
Hmm.
their freshman power forward, is 12th in the country in defensive rebounding percentage. So my man eats up those rebounds. Average depth chart over the last 5 games for Syracuse very quickly. So you got Con Carlos and JJ Starling, kind of interchangeable at point guard. Kyle Cuff, Lucas Taylor, Jair Davis, and then Eddie Lampkin. And then that's really what they run out there. Actually, they also have Elijah Moore and Chris Bell. But those are your kind of 7 or 8 guys that are going to take up most of the minutes. To you, Alan, who stands out as a guy that Louisville's going to have to really account for, and who could really give them problems?
I've only caught them a couple times this year, but I think
Hmm.
Starling that's their leading scorer. No, it's his.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's I wouldn't say Louisville struggles with that position, um, but I mean but with scorers, I will say like you know guys like that are going to get theirs. Or not saying they're gonna, but like against Louisville, they've proved to get.
That's they will. Yes,
You have like a
absolutely.
guy like Jeremiah. Okay, you know, example Jeremiah Fears. I thought this guy's young. We're an experienced team. We're gonna figure out ways to take away. Some guys, it's like when you recruit athletes, like there's certain coaches that will recruit an athlete over a guy that can get to the line, like certain things that they just need an athlete in there. And I feel like Starling just on tape looks, like just a tough to handle, just
Hmm.
like Jeremiah. Again, I thought we could slow down Jeremiah Fears, and we weren't able to do that. He had, I mean, obviously an incredible game against us, and not saying we can't. I just think that was the kid that jumped off the screen at me. And again, I
Yeah.
don't even remember what game it was I was watching. They may have lost that game, but it was something that was on. Um, and it was like a gap in like games that I was trying to watch. I was just kind of checking it out, but um,
Sure.
so like with guys that can get to the rack and are more athletic and like more skill, just skill players.
Sure.
Um, Louisville, not that they struggle slowing these guys down, but it can be a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Like in certain stretches.
For
So
sure, for sure. And part of this storyline, surrounding JJ Starling especially, he was injured and out for all of December. And so that's when Syracuse picked up their two home losses. So that's really where you saw them really struggle and Syracuse fans kind of losing their collective minds. Then he comes back in a blowout loss of Florida State, only scores 12 points and picks up 3 assists. But then after that, the last two games at home against Georgia Tech and then at Boston College, he went for
yeah.
21 and 5, and then 26 and 5 in back to back games. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a guy that Louisville's going to have to contend with. He has a lot of size and length at the guard position, so it's going to be interesting to watch there. If people don't remember, JJ Starling actually played his first season, I believe. Yeah, just his freshman season at Notre Dame. So
Okay.
that definitely a name to watch as we're going into this game. Starling and then Donnie Freeman, who's their really solid, high upside freshman forward as well. So this is a team that is decent individually at shooting the ball. It stands out. Chris Bell is a guy that kind of lit up Louisville the last couple of seasons.
Mhm.
16 for 61 from beyond the arc. So it does stand out when you look at some of these statistics. Rain Smith has made 61 threes on the season. Isn't that what we just said earlier?
Right.
And
Yeah.
he's attempted 61. So
Okay.
definitely not a team that's going to be jacking up a ton of threes.
No.
They are 331st in 3-point percentage in college basketball. So this very well could be a game where you see two teams come out and just start throwing up a bunch of clunkers. But
Yeah.
to me, like this is a game you cannot lose. Like
Yeah. No. No.
Syracuse is not good. This is a
Yeah.
game where you need to kind of prove yourself, that you can handle business and get out of there with a comfortable win. What do
Yeah.
you think, Alec?
Yeah. I mean, at this stage, like PK said in that post game when he's talking to the team, is the next thing is the most important thing, and he's like, go enjoy this win, and I am still doing that, but I haven't lost sight of like now is exactly the worst time to drop. Not saying the Carrier Dome is like the worst loss you could possibly have, but the matchup that we have, like it's a complete mismatch on paper for Syracuse. Like this is the wrong team to come into town. Um,
Hmm.
to them. So if I think if you went and found a podcast where they're talking about this game, they're all kind of like, well, this last game, they went and beat Pitt. These guys are, like there's all kinds of things they can pick. Um,
Hmm.
and so they're probably, commiserating a little bit just because that fan base does that very well. And that area of the country does that very well. The commiserating, like
Yes.
worst case scenario things. I get it, but if you're Louisville, if you're Pat Kelsey, like the statement part is the seventh win in a row. It's not necessarily beating Pitts or beating Syracuse on the road. It's that now this has reached seven. So like now
Yeah.
we're well, because even right now we're kind of you know looking at history and we're kind of like popping up on people's the national landscape on people's with the tickers at the bottom and stuff like that. We're
Sure.
starting to pop up on college basketball like talking points, a regular
Hmm.
thing. Because just I mean, if it was a Patino team and nothing bad happened and everything was the same, maybe not. But I think where we've been and how low we were the last couple of years, last 3 years even, it's six in a row is something. And so even if you're beating New Jersey Tech or whatever, like 7, 8, 9, the more you can add to this thing,
Sure.
um, this is history. I mean, it could be. This like I don't think we've seen the end of it, but anything could happen. You could always drop a stinker. I've seen Brom do it, when at his highest. So it does happen. So
Absolutely, absolutely. You got to come to this game locked in. I mean, at this point, you have turned some heads, right? Like people know that it's Louisville, Duke, Pitt, maybe SMU, North Carolina. Those are the teams that have a target on their back now,
yeah,
and so it's about
yeah,
game in and game out, consistently being the team that you know that you can be. I thought that Louisville played a C plus to B minus game at Pitt. I don't know if you echo those sentiments. Like I thought there was a lot of room to be improved. I mean, they missed what 10 plus layups. I don't know. I'd
yeah,
have to go back and look at the exact statistic, but I mean, lots of room for improvement after that game. And
yeah.
so come in locked in, ready to go against the Syracuse team. What do you think prediction wise?
Yeah, and to your point, I think I don't know if it was this game or the one before. They shot 45% from the free throw line or something. Like their free throw, I think their field goal percentage was higher. It's either higher
Hmm.
or like right up under free throw
Yeah,
percentage. Like, yeah, I mean, there's several things like you're saying, like that, you're not going to give a team like that an A plus. No, so I echo that 100%. Again, I just think it's the experience and the grit and the confidence and poise of this team and the coaching staff and that's gotten us this far. As far as like Syracuse, prediction wise, I do think it's number 7. I don't think the streak stops here. Um, and again, like if gun to my head right now, if you were like pick a spread, I think you're looking at Louisville by like 9ish. You know what I
hmm,
mean? I think it's something that it could be a game where it's a little bit back and forth. Maybe not. Syracuse takes the lead, Louisville takes the lead because this Louisville team has proved against, starting with Florida State, that the outlier is EKU. Again, with that zone, I think, fucked us up a little bit. But this team has proven take to gain the lead and just kind of cradle that thing. And maybe you lose it a couple times, but it's very brief. Even at Pittsburgh and the hostile environments like they've been in, and really like nail biting games, they've been able to just down the stretch take care of business. So I don't think you get that kind of trouble from Syracuse. I don't think Syracuse is built that way. I don't think they're built to come back either.
right.
Especially they're not shooting the three very well. When you get down, a certain whatever, and you can't, let's say they can't execute down low, they can't get to the rack. Say we're frustrating them because we've done that in this winning streak,
Hmm.
and on their 3-point shot, and it's not their thing. It is a Louisville thing for them to shoot lights out, sure. It's a Louisville thing for them to win a game shooting lights out, but I don't think that happens. I don't think it's going to be a one possession call a timeout with 10 seconds left to win the game thing. I think Louisville
Right.
takes business, and I think you might see our ninth and 10th straight halves of basketball won as well.
Yeah.
I don't think I don't know. Very possibility that Louisville could dominate this game. It's just the Carrier Dome. I can't really go out on a limb and say that's going to happen, but
Yeah.
that I can see anywhere from 8 to 10 is like your boom or bust kind of thing.
Sure.
Like you could boom above 10. It could be a 5 or 6 point game. It could be 3 or 4, sure, but I think 8 to 10 is the sweet spot to beat. The point spread or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is their first like really really solid test in a while, and their first with Starling returning to the lineup. They did lose in blowout fashion at Florida State, but I think
Oh,
that obviously Louisville is a much more quality squad than Florida State is. When you look at teams that you've seen that have turned out to be really quality opponents, they played Texas, Texas Tech, and Tennessee, and they played close with Texas and Texas Tech early in the season. Kind of one of those. What do they call those things? The neutral site.
just
Um,
like a tournament, like preseason tournament kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah. What are those things called? What do they call them? Not PPEs, but whatever. It doesn't matter. Somebody comment and let us know. But no, I mean those were close games, right? 70-66 to Texas, 79-74 to Texas Tech. But then you get blown out at Tennessee. They lost by 5 again to Notre Dame. But in all these in all these games where they're playing quality or quasi quality opponents, you're looking at them allowing a high number of points, especially more of recent. I mean, 90 points allowed to Florida State.
Yeah,
Pretty high possession games as well. You look over the last. So it is as much as they don't like to push it on offense since middle of December, 68, 74, 73, 74, 71, 72, and 67 possessions. Those are all much higher than what Louisville's playing at, which is more like a 64 to 69 possession, uh, you know, style of play. So that'll be interesting to watch. I think that Louisville gets a lot of extra possessions off of, quality offensive rebounding, off of, just turning the opponent over, as you said, Alan. I think this should be a shellacking. I'm going to go 96 to 84. I think it's one of those where Louisville's out to a really comfortable lead and kind of calls off the dogs. This isn't it's not a Syracuse team lacking talent. It's just doesn't have an identity and just really struggles in a lot of areas. So yeah, that's what I'll go with. What I say, 96-82.
Okay, yeah,
I think the Cards take care of business. I nothing is indicated to me at this point that they wouldn't, right?
right.
And everything screams for this game to be one where Louisville gets lots of open shots. Syracuse has a pretty poor 3-point defense. They don't shoot the ball very well from beyond the arc.
No.
They're going to try to feed things through the post, so that'll be interesting to see how Louisville defends that. But yeah, I think that this has blowout written all over it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we're doing if we're gonna do scores, like I tend to lean on what you're saying. I mean, they allow the most points. Louisville is, right now just coming off of dropping 82 at Pittsburgh. Not saying that hasn't happened before, but I certainly expected more of a offensive struggle, air
Hmm.
quotes, on the road in that environment from Louisville, and they just don't flinch. And even not shooting well from the free throw line or necessarily that well from the 3-point line, and still putting up those kind of numbers. Louisville's done really good in the, I guess, there's an AAU coach that referred to it as the floater area, which is not layup necessarily, but it's like your Terrence Edwards,
Hmm.
you know, where he winds down, gets his back to the basket. Not necessarily the Javon Hadley area, but just in that like 3 or 4 foot
Sure.
um, area where it's like maybe right in the paint or right outside the paint. Not free throw line, but just in that middle part. They shoot. I would like to see a shot chart. I think they shoot very well from that area right there. They're just finding ways to get it done and score points. So I'm kind of with you. I lean more towards like a 90 to 79, 90 to 80 kind of thing. I can see where Louisville allows the ebb and flow with Syracuse, but instead of just kind of like, because it's one of those things where if you force the issue to kind of slow things down, then that affects you too. You can't slow down the defensive end and then expect a freewheeling game, which is what Louisville wants. We're trying to expose everything that they suck at,
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to allow the back and forth and a track meet, and this team is also shown to be very well conditioned,
Yeah.
down the stretch.
Yeah.
So this it's what you want. I'm kind of with you, leaning more towards the higher end of the spectrum. I'll give Louisville 90 in this one. 90 I'll say 90-80.
Yeah. I think if Florida State can score 90 against this team, there's no reason reason that Louisville couldn't.
Yes.
Um, Maybe that's just optimistic thinking, but yeah, I think that's absolutely right, Alan. I think that some of the better games that Louisville's played this season have been a little bit more free flowing, and that's led to some breakouts and defensive misassignments and that sort of stuff in transition for Louisville. But I think ultimately, as we talked about early in the season, if you can play that way and be just used to that tempo, I think the conditioning and the just comfort playing at that speed and dictating the pace of the game is ultimately going to win out, 95 times out of 100, especially against a team like this. Yeah, and so I'd love to see them playing that kind of free flowing style of play. I think that Syracuse could try to combat that by trying to make it really physical and get Louisville players into foul trouble. But ultimately, I just don't, Syracuse hasn't showed any reason to believe that they'd be able to dictate the pace of the game. It hasn't happened against any quality opponents that they played so far this season. Not sure why it would start now. So, any
Yeah.
final thoughts?
I've been preparing the past two games that Pittsburgh and Clemson, preparing for what showed me on paper to be either losses or just in heartbreaking fashion, or I thought Pittsburgh I thought that might be the game that we're like, okay, we got to go back to the drawing board and see
Sure.
what we're doing wrong. And they're just finding ways like, we're a broken record talking about just the poise and the, down the stretch and just, PK's just like Denny Crum out there, out of timeouts and just
Hmm.
finding different ways to get the right people the ball in the right situations, like you said, timely possessions. And I don't think you're going to need that help in the Carrier Dome. And the only reason I'm being nice with like 10 and like the only preemptive thing I have with the score is the Carrier Dome because it is the Carrier
Sure.
Dome. I do, that it's a formidable place to play and it holds the most people. And at this point, you've won 6 straight. You're alone at number 2 in the SEC. You are still Louisville. I think enough people are. It's not we're not surprising people anymore. I think now you're starting to see, like you said, like the bullseyes on their back, and people are starting to. I mean, not that it's everybody's Super Bowl right away, but Louisville's come to town. They beat UNC. They just took care of Pitt on the road. Like, more people are gonna get out of their homes and come to see us. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And that's kind of refreshing as well. Like opposing teams. I think you'll just see it. Even though I think what Syracuse they're below 500 or something like that. Not a
They're
great.
yeah 8-8. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah,
So
so
yeah.
500. Even still, I think this might, get some people, down to the Carrier Dome to watch Louisville. Because it's like that's kind of cool to say. Like Louisville's in town. You haven't been able to say that in a
Hmm.
few. We've been a laughing stock, and anyway, it's just that's those are my final thoughts. Is that that's what's kind of like got my collar pulling to the side like don't go crazy saying we're gonna win by 20, even though my gut's kind of telling me this could be the real beat the road beat down. You know.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot more reason to believe that this would be a blowout game for Louisville than it would be, a game leaning in Syracuse's favor at this point.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is why you play the games, right?
Right.
So you just want to continue to see Louisville continue its momentum, try not to stall out too much, try to continue this upward trajectory and figure out where you can get better and grow as a team because there will be, more challenges down the road. And these are the types of games that you have to win if you want to continue to be a good to great team. So,
Amen.
Alan, it's been fantastic. Thank you for joining us. Last second here.
Yes, sir.
Make sure you follow him on the Twitter/X platform at card_N_Al. Follow me at Press Meyer. Follow us at the State of Lou and Starting 502. Until next time, let's get out of here and go Cards. Make it 7 straight.
Thanks, Presley. Have a good one.